India has developed a new assault rifle. It's called Ugram. In English, it means ferocious or the fierce one. The rifle comes at a time when there has been a high demand for small arms among the security forces, and its operational capabilities are yet to be tested. Will the rifle hit the mark? What are its key features? How much does it cost? Most importantly, could it be the new Kalashnikov? Here's all we know about this rifle. For starters, it weighs less than 4 kilograms. It has a firing range of 500 meters and caliber of 7.62 into 51 millimeters. Next, it has a 20-round magazine. Now, for those unversed, the magazine basically stores the ammunition that has not been fired. What's more, all of the rifle's critical components are made using steel to ensure ruggedness. It can be used in 2 modes, automatic as well as single, and its configuration is based on the latest AK and AR type rifles. So who developed this rifle and who is going to be using it? You see, India's Defence Research and Development Organization collaborated with a private firm, DVIPA Armour India, to develop the rifle, and it is intended to be used by Indian armed forces, the paramilitary forces and police forces. What makes it even more remarkable is its swift production. While the project started 2 years ago, the rifle was developed in only 100 days. And now it will undergo the internal tests, acceptance trials and the user trials. Its operational capability will be tested under different conditions like the harsh winter, extreme heat and even underwater. During the trials, the number of bullet rounds to be fired, heating of the target, the dimensions and distribution of the bullet impact will be checked. A high altitude test will also be conducted. This comes when there is a huge shortage of assault rifles in India. Just last month, the Defense Acquisition Council approved the import of 70,000 US-made SIG Sawyer rifles. These rifles reportedly are of the same caliber as that of this new rifle. As for the homegrown rifles, the joint project with Russia to produce AK-203 rifles is also riddled with delays. That is because of the war in Ukraine. PLR Systems is also supplying weapons to the Israel weapon industries. So it is an opportunity for India to produce its own indigenous rifles. The DRDO has also established a dedicated barrel manufacturing facility for small arms on its campus. And what does it aim to do? Manufacture barrels for various weapons in a short time frame. It will also help the private industries in their weapon manufacturing projects. The machines in this facility have been imported from Austria. The project is worth 60 crore rupees or $7.2 million. You see, private industries have the license to develop weapons, but they do not have the technology and the facility to produce barrels for the weapons. So they have no option but to import barrels. And that is a costly affair. It's not feasible for them to invest in this kind of facility. But now the DRDO has done the job. It has the required expertise in this area, and it is willing to handhold the private weapon manufacturing firms. As you can see, India is emphasizing on Atmanirbhar or self-reliance in the defense sector. Will we see more rifles like this one in the coming time? Before I begin my next story, I must warn you, it's a bit unsettling. A new report on sexual abuse against children has revealed some startling details. It says most of these crimes are committed by children. These shocking findings have been made in survey conducted in England and Wales. This survey was conducted and compiled by the National Police Chiefs Council. It said while offences committed by adults are a reality, but so are sexual offences by those aged 17 or under. Let me just take you through the data. According to the report, in the year 2022, a total of 107,000 reports of alleged sexual offences against children were made to the police in England and Wales. The figure included rape and sharing of indecent images. And out of this, a total of 52% of all alleged offenders were children, as compared to just 1/3 around a decade ago. That's right. According to the police, 14,800 rapes and sexual assaults against children aged 10 to 17 were majorly committed by young boys. The report further states that the most common offences committed by 10 to 17-year-olds was sexual assault on a female. They accounted for 15% of the cases. 12% of rapes of a female under 16 were also committed by 10 to 17-year-olds. These findings are distressing, to say the least. They tell you how more children are committing sexual abuse offences against other children in a growing and concerning trend. The question is, what really explains this? Well, the investigators say that this trend is partly fueled by violent porn and access to smartphones. Let me just quote a statement from Ian Critchley, the National Policing Lead for Child Abuse Protection at the National Police Chiefs Council in the UK. He said, and I'm quoting, "I think the crimes are being exacerbated by the accessibility to violent pornography and the ease with which violent pornography is accessible to boys. Clearly, the accessibility to smartphones has just rocketed, and not just in relation to 11 to 16-year-olds, but in relation to under 10s as well. That accessibility has really exacerbated, and I think this is a debate that does need to be had in our society." And this is not the first of its kind report. In December last year, in fact, there was another similar report. It said thousands of young people are being caught sharing or watching indecent images of children. The report was based on figures obtained through the Freedom of Information request to the police forces across England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Now here's the thing. Children these days are becoming desensitized by early exposure to pornography, and without intervention, they run the risk of becoming addicted to harmful material. And this just goes on to tell us how much smartphones are actually changing childhood. How early access to smartphones could negatively impact the development of happy and healthy, balanced children. They are putting them at risk of cyberbullying and exposing them to sexual content. No wonder children today have become so susceptible to crimes. The question is, how does one save their child from this trap? To start with, acknowledge the fact that your child may feel embarrassed or worried about talking to you. Second, reassure them that it is okay to feel curious about things as they grow up. Third, explain to them how things they watch online are not what happens in real life. Fourth, initiate sex education. Explain to your child how relationships are built around trust and respect and not what they consume online. And lastly, ensure that you have parental controls set up across all your devices. The bottom line is this: children may see pornography online by accident, deliberately, or under peer pressure, but at the end of the day, you know your child best. So approach any conversation about this in a way that feels right for the both of you. A feud is brewing between OpenAI and the New York Times. The publication has sued OpenAI and its partner, Microsoft Corp, for what exactly? Copyright infringement. New York Times has accused ChatGPT of outright copying its content. And what does its parent company, OpenAI, have to say? Here, take a look at what it posted on its blog page. Let me read it out for you. The New York Times lawsuit is without merit, quote unquote. You see, a war has broken out. It's a war of words. It's a war for authenticity. And here's what we know. On the 27th of December, New York Times filed a lawsuit against OpenAI and Microsoft in Federal District Court in Manhattan. What was the publication's complaint? That millions of its articles were allegedly being used to train ChatGPT, and worse, they now compete with the news outlet as a source of reliable information. That was the complaint. And what does the New York Times want? It wants OpenAI and Microsoft to be held responsible. It is calling for the companies to destroy any chatbot models and training data that use copied material from the Times. Now, you may already know how these AI chatbots work. They are basically trained using large language models. They churn massively large data sets to understand and summarize and then create new content. And in the case of New York Times, the complaint is not merely that ChatGPT has allegedly used its content as an input, as something to learn from. It's bigger than that. New York Times says that in various instances, ChatGPT has word for word regurgitated Times content. Simply put, the problem isn't that it is training on the content, but that it is shamelessly copying it allegedly. And then there is the issue of paywalls as well. The Times' lawyers arguing that ChatGPT can be tricked into reciting the publication's content, that too with minimal prompts. And what is OpenAI doing to tackle this? It says the New York Times is not telling the full story, that the publication has mentioned seeing some regurgitation of its content, but refused to share any examples. OpenAI went so far as to claim that New York Times intentionally manipulated ChatGPT to regurgitate its content. You see, strong allegations have been made. At the same time, OpenAI has admitted that content regurgitation is a rare bug in the system, and it is working to fix it. The AI firm also claims that using data sets for training purposes is fair use. But that is not what content creators and publishers around the world think. They have been trying to limit the increasingly powerful large language models training on the work of human creators, or at least get some compensation out of it. Meanwhile, OpenAI is in talks with publishers for licensing content. For months, it has been trying to strike deals to feature publisher content, and reports say it recently signed a multi-year deal with Politico's parent company. It cost OpenAI tens of millions of dollars. The AI firm was also in talks with the New York Times. But as you can see, it did not go down that well. The lawsuit poses a major challenge to OpenAI. If the Times wins the case, OpenAI may not only owe billions of dollars, but could also be forced to destroy any of its training data sourced from the Times, which is a costly and complicated affair.